Let's say you're an analog guy. What do you do about your digital music? I don't know anyone at all who doesn't listen to some form of digital music. I don't know anybody who's all completely analog. I'm sure they exist out there, but none of my friends are analog only. They all have a DAC of some sort. I mean, even if you're just playing CDs, you still have a DAC. So when you start to look into these things and you start to read the reviews over the last 10 to 15 years, there's only one type of DAC that gets somewhat close to an analog sound, and that's an R2R DAC, a resistor ladder DAC. So I'd like to focus this video on the sound of my Audio GD R8 MKII DAC, which is a resistor ladder DAC. It's, if you watch my intro video, it's from a Chinese company called Audio GD, and they design and manufacture a whole line of electronics. So I bought this DAC in November of 2021. So I've owned it for 3 years. It's now December of 2024. So I've owned it for 3 years. I've used it almost daily for 3 years. So I'm pretty familiar with the sound of this DAC. That's one of the reasons I'm doing these kind of long-term reviews and talking about the equipment I own, is to give you, a real sense from the ownership side, after long-term ownership, what something's like to live with every day and what it sounds like. So just on a kind of very broad stroke, the tonal balance of this DAC is actually quite even. And, when I'm talking about these sound quality issues, remember that you're never able to divorce the sound of the component you have from the system it's in. So, a lot of what I'm going to describe is also a system-wide sound that I've achieved in this room. So that even tonal balance, I think, comes from a lot of different components. But there's no part of the frequency range that jumps out at you, or shouts at you, or is tipped up. And there's nothing really that's recessed either. I think everything's, top to bottom fairly even on this DAC. So let's talk about the bass. The bass is actually pretty good, and it goes remarkably deep. In some ways, I think it goes deeper even than my turntable. Maybe not quite the same impact, but lower in frequency. I'm pretty sure. I haven't done any measurements on that, but just the butt test tells me that it's kicking a little harder on the turntable, going a little lower in the DAC. And I want to play this song, Celestial Echo by Malia. And it will, if you've got a good headphone rig, check that out, because there's some really good low bass notes in there. So these are recordings in the room from my speakers.
I'll sense your fears, your fight. I'm the man, the storyteller. And here I am.
The mid-range on this DAC is also, very neutral. Nothing really jumps out at you, but it's a fully fleshed out sound, and vocals have a real presence to them, and tone and timbre are pretty right on in the mid-range. The treble also, it doesn't jump out at you. It's not tipped up in any way, and this is, in general, treble resolution is probably not the strong suit of my entire system. So, but I would say it doesn't tip up at all. So if you really, I think some classical fans really get into, hearing triangles and things in a certain way. This may, be a little soft on that for you, if that's your thing. But it's got good resolution up there, and it sounds pretty good in the treble. Resolution is also pretty good. It's not a detail machine. It is not about the minutest of details. This is not a mastering engineer's DAC. This is a warmer sounding, more musical, I hate that term too, but a music first, detail second kind of DAC. And I want to play this song by Kings of Convenience, called Second to Numb. And in the very beginning, I want you to listen. There's before the music actually starts, there are some low, very, very low level, there's like somebody sets something down, it kind of makes a bang, and then somebody in the very, very background says something. I can't quite make out, I can hear it, but I can't quite make out what they say. And it may not even be English. These guys are, I think, Norwegian, so it may not even be English, but you can hear them say something, but you don't know exactly what it is. And then when the music begins, these two guys have voices that are very close in timbre. So if you have a DAC that's not great, it'll make them sound like they're one person when they're actually two separate voices. And I think the recording captures this pretty decently. In my system, they are two distinct people singing in harmony together, but they are distinct voices. So check that out.
He won't touch you anymore, staying inside, half indifferent, half afraid. It will only make you cry. What is given can't be returned.
Okay, and the sound staging is also, it's a strong suit of this DAC. I think it's quite wide. It's got a very broad sound stage. That's also a characteristic of my system in general. It's probably not as deep as some. I feel like there are some DACs that give you more layers of depth. It's almost like it's high resolution in the width section and lower resolution in the depth section, if that makes any sense. So you do get a good sense of depth, but it's not pinpointing exactly how deep somebody is, if that makes any sense to you guys. And I want to show you an example of the sound staging. This is by Stemmaklang, probably also Scandinavian for some reason. I'm obsessed with Scandinavians. And the song's called Stila. And it's a choral recording. And I think choral recordings tend to always be recorded in these big acoustic spaces that have a really long reverberation times. And so they tend to be really good soundstage tests because they can give you a real sense of how big that venue is that they're singing in. So check this one out for a soundstage. Okay, so now I want to talk about what the different options of this DAC sound like. So there are 6 different digital inputs that are available on this DAC, and I've tried 3 out of the 6. So I've tried the AES, I have tried the BNC, and I have tried the USB connection, all from my Bricasti M5 streamer. And, I've sort of scrutinized them, gone through them, but I can tell you they don't really sound that much different. Each one basically, I don't hear a ton of differences, and if I do, I'm just not sure that there are differences. I think any of the digital inputs, that are the better types. Toastlink, kind of is what it is. I don't think a lot of audiophiles use Toastlink. You might use it on your TV or something else. So don't sweat over the digital inputs. I use on a regular basis. I just stuck with the AES because I think that is the preferred output that Bricasti recommends out of the streamer. So that's what I use. It's a balance cable. So I like the way the connectors fit and they don't strain or anything. Then within the DAC itself, there are a number of settings, which we went over kind of in the anatomy section of this review. And so what I did was take the most extreme versions of the two of all the options and kind of compared those extremes. So on one side, we have this non-oversampling and a vinyl simulation setting. That is kind of the warmest setting there is. And on the opposite side, we have an 8 times oversampling with no vinyl simulation turned on. And so, what I can tell you is that the 8 times oversampling puts more emphasis on the front end of notes. And sort of that initial transient has stronger emphasis than the back end of a note. And what the vinyl simulation does is it sort of smooths out those initial transients. And I want to be careful here that I don't portray that simulation as something that's wholly unnatural or sort of truncates everything and smooths it out to a point where it's syrupy or sweet. It's not really like that. And as someone, who spends probably 60% of their time listening to vinyl, I actually find that I prefer that vinyl simulation setting. It does actually get closer to what I hear with my turntable. Whether that's the more accurate of the two, I don't really care. It's just the one that I prefer. And what's nice about this is that you do have those flavors, and then you have a number of settings in between those flavors that you can maybe tailor to your taste. So you don't have to do 8 times oversampling. You can do 2 times, 4 times. You can turn the vinyl simulation off or on. I am the type of audiophile who is a kind of set and forget kind of guy. So I go through all the settings, figure out what I like, and then I just leave it, and I just enjoy it. So I have left non-oversampling on and the simulation on, and that's just the way that I prefer it. But it is nice, and it does sort of differentiate this DAC from, I think, maybe some other ones, which probably have other digital filter options and things and oversampling options. I am not that familiar with the Denafrips line, which is probably going to be the comparison that everyone wants to know about. But sorry, I haven't heard any Denafrips, so I don't know what their sound signature is like, or how many options they have within their DACs. So I've done a little sound clip that takes this song by Andrew Bird and Madison Cunningham, and I've done a recording of the vinyl simulation, no oversampling, versus the 8 times oversampling. And I'll play this for you and try to, as seamlessly as I can, hop between the two. And I've listened to these on my headphone rig. I can't really hear it, but I'll post it anyway. It's there. When you start getting recordings and then playing it back through another chain, you're getting all sorts of other stuff going on. So it may be too subtle to pick up on your headphone rigs, but give it a shot. Trust me, that difference is there in the room. It probably just doesn't come through as well on the recording.
Well, I got nothing but time, no time for living. I've been everywhere, but it's all the same.
I just need somebody that I can lean on. Nobody wants to keep you when you're in love with the game. But you know that I can't let go, and there ain't nothing left to show. Got the feeling I can't say no without a leg to stand on. There's so many fine people that I believe in. They don't care where I'm going. It's not their show.
Well, I got nothing but time, no time for living. I used to be somebody, but that was so long ago.
Look around but you won't see me.
Just a picture of what I used to be.
There ain't nothing to set me free. But you know that I can't let go, and there ain't nothing left to show. Got the feeling I can't say no without a leg to stand on.
Okay, so in the final part, I want to talk about a comparison I did between the Audio GD R8 and another DAC that I have, the ELAC Discovery. Now, the ELAC Discovery is a little streamer and DAC in one, kind of like a Blue Sound node. So it's not exactly an apples to apples comparison because the Audio GD is going through the M5 streamer and then into the DAC, and the ELAC Discovery is taking the Ethernet and then putting an analog signal out to the preamp. But why I think it's valid to compare this $2,000 DAC to a I think $550 ELAC Discovery is there are probably many of you who are wondering, maybe you have a Blue Sound node and you're wondering if I add like a $2,000 DAC, what kind of upgrade can I expect out of that? And I've got to be honest, it's not a massive leap. It really is fairly subtle. I think, the low end DACs have gotten pretty good over the last 10 years or so. I would say there's been a big improvement, I think, in the chipsets that go in some of these low dollar DACs. And so there are differences, and I'm going to go through some of my notes and explain, what I thought of these two things. So the Audio GD, and these are probably going to be pretty obvious from what I've already told you, you have a much smoother presentation. And by the way, this comparison was done with my preferred setting of the simulation on and no oversampling. You do get a wider soundstage, and that's quite a bit wider. And you also get better separation between instruments in that soundstage. The perspective is a little bit further back, and there is more depth information on the Audio GD. It perhaps lacks a little bit of top-end sparkle compared to the ELAC Discovery. If you switch to 8 times oversampling, that might split the difference a little bit, I'm guessing. On the ELAC side, what you have is a more incisive presentation. And I think if you were to A-B these two next to each other in a 30-minute audition at a dealer, some people might actually prefer the ELAC because it feels a little more exciting at first. But this is one of those things, I think, where when you live with it for the long term, that kind of presentation starts to induce a little bit of fatigue over time because the top end isn't really that refined. You also get a narrower soundstage on this. I would say the bass hits actually a little bit harder than the Audio GD, but it's also a little muddier, where there's less differentiation of notes that happen in the low end. It is a bit more forward in its presentation. It's slightly grainy on vocals compared to the Audio GD, which is much smoother. And there is this leading edge emphasis. And once again, if you like that, the 8 times oversampling might get you most of the way there. So it's interesting, but if you were someone that had, let's say, $1,000 amp and $1,000 to $1,500 speakers, and you had a Blue Sound, right, and you wanted to know, is this a worthwhile upgrade? I would have to say your money would probably be better spent on the speaker amp side of things before you upgraded the DAC, because if you don't really have resolution enough in the back end, upgrading the front end doesn't necessarily get you all the way there. But that's just my opinion. I think if we were going to sum up what the Audio GD R8 DAC is like to live with, is it any good? I think the answer is yes. It's quite good. In going from turntable to DAC, which I do almost every day, I don't. I choose what I want to listen to, and whatever format it's on, it's on. and I don't feel a huge letdown when I go from my turntable to this DAC. It delivers, that really smooth sound that I enjoy. Um, are there better DACs out there? Sure, I'm sure. I'd love to hear Audio GD's top of the line. And I think I mentioned on another video that the R8 is their second from the top. It's actually their third from the top. So looking this up, that there's the R7, um, then there's an R8 that has a regenerative power supply, which is similar to what I have in my preamp from them. And then there's the R8 without the regenerative power supply. So that's the kind of order of things. And I believe the R7 is like 5,000. The R8 regenerative power supply is maybe 3, and the R8 is currently at 2,000. I have not heard any of those other DACs, but what I do love about Audio GD is they spend a lot of time and real estate on their power supplies. They're very robust, and it's a well built component inside and out, and I don't think you can go wrong buying this DAC, and you can get some subtle flavor differences by choosing some of those options. I'm going to go out on a limb. I haven't heard any of these other R2R DACs out there, but I'm going to guess, just judging from how the Audio GD compared to the ELAC, I'm going to guess that there's not going to be a massive difference between these R2R DACs. And so I would choose the one maybe that you're able to audition, one you can get a deal on, whatever it is. I wouldn't sweat the differences between these R2R DACs that are all in that $2,000 range. But if you have the opportunity to hear one, by all means do it, because I really do enjoy this one, and I've used it for 3 years now. I don't think I've kept a digital component for 3 years in a long, long time. So it's a testament to how fun it is to listen to this thing. And I hope you guys enjoyed this video. And I'll catch you next time. Thanks. Bye.